Dorothy from Eclectic Images, and welcome to the last one in a series of 4 that we've been doing called Winter Wonderland. We were doing effects on matte cardstock. So today I'm doing a little bit different, not quite the ink blending that we've done on the others. Going to do more some smooshing and then filling in colour with the Pentel brush markers. It's going to be a bit messy, but we like that, don't we? Like getting inks and stuff everywhere. So what I'm creating is a northern or southern lights scene. So something that's got lots of colour in it, but then got the darkness of the sky as well. And a little bit some snowy hillsides and some of the lights colours reflecting off the creek. Okay, so our stamps that we're going to use are in the Aussie scenes, we've got the Aussie Creek, we've got some of our new little stars, and I did put a bit of the smaller grass out of the grass set. That's reflecting quite badly, isn't it? I think let's tip that up and you see the Aussie Creek, but we're not going to make it look like an Aussie Creek. Okay, our inks that we're using, some Versamark for embossing, plus the Catherine Pooler inks in All That Jazz, Mardi Gras, Suede Shoes, Be Mine and Twilight. And our other 2 really cool tools is the Pentel brush markers, and I've got steel blue and black, and we'll be using these. I'll be using 2 of our Pentel water brushes. One use either the broad or the filbert, and the medium, and that's how we're going to get our sky colouring in. Now the first thing, I'm going to do something a little bit different on our sample card now. I'm using the 300 GSM cotton blend, which is a bit thicker, so it's got a more resistance to the water. But what I'm going to do is actually just emboss in white some nice little stars up in the sky. Although, no, maybe I will stamp and emboss the scene first, because then I'll know where it is to know where my sky is. That makes sense. Okay, so let's just get our anti-static pad, give it a good swipe over, our Versamark ink, and ink up our creek scene. Make sure it's nice and inky. We want all those fronds on the trees to come out. Stamping it so it's going off the edge of the page a bit. Press down nice and firm, and while I'm pressing down, I'll just bring my black embossing powder a little bit closer. And get our embossing powder on straight away. Down. I may need to get a bit more up on this end as well, so I'll just scoop in again. I have to be very careful when I'm doing this, because I tend to tilt it towards me, and then I realise that all you're seeing is a blank bit of card. So I have to stop myself and actually make myself turn the card around. So sorry if I occasionally do that away from you. So I'm just giving the side of the card a tap, then I'll give the back a good thump, and that should get rid of all of our excess grains except where I had my hands on it. So we're just going to scrape those ones off. Not that a few are going to probably show in this sky once we do everything that we're going to do to this sky. Right, let's heat that. So we'll move our embossing powder out of our zone and get the heat gun onto that. There she goes. So I must admit, Northern Lights scenes are usually done with pine trees, but I thought that these trees were fairly generic, so I've decided that we'll get away with using these instead. Especially as I don't have any pine trees in my range. So we use what we've got. Okay, let's do our little stars now. So we'll just give that a bit of a wipe with the anti-static again. And there's 4 in the set, but I'm actually only going to use the 3 smallest ones. just going to switch to, I've got two Versamark pads. One's a little bit older and I tend to use it when I'm using my grottier stamps, and one's a bit fresher, so we use this when we're using, particularly when we want a white effect and we don't want to pick up any colour off our Versamark pad. So let's just do a couple of these little ones together. And I will stop and add powder as I go so that they don't dry before I get back to them. So just tap that one off. Now switch to our smallest ones. I better not linger over this too much or we're not going to get our video through in time, are we? One more over the other side. Maybe just a small one. No, just do that one because it's there. Okay. So once again, flip it over. Good tap on the back. Get rid of any excess. Pop my pad and my powder out of range. And I'll just collect up those little stamps and put them to one side ready to be cleaned. And let's give those a heat. Now white's one of those colours that can overheat, so as soon as you see it go smooth, that's when you move away. Okay, this is pretty exciting. Right, our next stage is to do some smooshing. So I'm going to lay out some inks on my craft mat. I'll start with some Be Mine, and this one you won't really see where it is on the mat, but the effect will be there when we pick the colour up. So Be Mine, let's have some All That Jazz either side. And because of what we're doing with it, it's not going to matter if I just do some edges of the pads, because it's all going to get smooshed in together. Put a bit of blue through the pink. And let's have some Mardi Gras down this end. Okay, now you spritz that with water. Let it smoosh a bit. And now I'm also going to spritz my card with a bit of water, but I've got to be careful. I don't want to get all the colours all over this part of the card. So we'll just spritz that top half. Now I'm going to lay the card down, but I'm going to lay it down in such a way that I bend it so that I can see that I'm not coming down over my snowy hillsides. Let's just get that right to the edge there. Have a little bit of paper towel handy. Now that has come up really well. Those colours look great, don't they? Let's just dry that off a little bit. Now, if I was just doing this myself and not doing a video, I would get another bit of card and smoosh it in there and make several more backgrounds before I cleaned it up. I wouldn't just waste that. But I'm going to not waste all of it anyway, because let's get our water brush and actually use those inks to paint in our creek, and this will give that a little bit of drying time. So let's pick up some of the pink and put that in the middle of the creek. Now your creek, I normally look at it running like that, but you could actually take the creek out to, that could be a little bit of reeds in the creek. We could take the creek out a bit bigger if we wanted to. So let's put some pink in. A bit of aqua. And we'll bring some aqua down into this part of it as well. Just clean my brush so I can do a little bit of blending there. I'll just soften that edge out before it dries too hard. Now let's pick up some of our, oh, what's that colour? blue. Let's grab a bit of this blue as well. Again, give my brush a clean and I can just go over those edges, make sure that they're all blending in nicely. Okay, let's put some of this bluey colour in here, and I am going to take it right out to here. Okay, so there's our creek reflecting our northern lights. So I'll move that to one side for a moment and just clean all this mess up. Mess. It's beautiful inks. I hate having to waste it, but you're really not using much off your pads to do a colour palette like that. So we're not wasting a lot of ink. It's just that, oh, I want to just smoosh more things in it, make more pretties. Right, so let's do a bit of colouring. Let's start on our skies. So I'm going to bring my scratch pad back in again. Just wipe off any of that anti-static pad that was on it. Now then, so we're going to start working around. We'll work along our horizon line first. And I'm going to use, I meant to use the metallic when I spritzed. Anyway, we'll use that as we go along. I'm going to use the broader brush for spreading the blue and the narrow brush for blending the black into it. This will make sense in a moment. So these Pentel markers, the black is a really good black and the blue is a nice steely sort of, it's called steel blue, and it's a nice deep, I don't know how to describe it, deep steel blue. I don't want bright, I want deep around the edge. So we're going to put some blue on here first up to that, nearly to the horizon line, and because we've got a bit of a gap there before the other colours start, I'm actually going to colour it all the way up to there. Now you've got to be careful you don't get mixed up with what brushes you've got in your hand. So I'm squeezing the brush so that we flood it with a bit of water, and we want to flood this so that it blends into our other colours. Then we're going to pop a little bit of black right along that horizon line, and a bit, because we're in the corner, we'll work up the corner a bit with the black, and then use our other brush just to blend that black into the blue. Now to make that blend more, and this is where we can use our metallic a bit if we want to, we can give that a spritz in the direction that we want it to blend. So if I give it a spritz this way, it's going to start running and smooshing. Is that enough smoosh? Probably will be once we start doing around the corner. Let's keep working along the horizon line, but the more blend and smoosh we get, the better. So let's add some blue in. So where are our hills going? Our hill goes up across there. So let's add the blue in. Fill all that in. And then let it smoosh. So I'm just pushing a bit of water into it. So I give the brush a bit of a squeeze, just push some water in, encourage it to do its own thing. Now let's add the black in there, which will make it all the more dramatic. Is that a word? Dramatica?
No.
No, okay. Can I make it a word?
Okay.
And use my smaller brush to blend that in. I like it, Dramatica. Let's pop a bit more steel blue. We're a little bit wet on the card there, so it hasn't come on quite as deeply as I wanted it to. So I'm just adding a bit more in, and then we'll give it a spritz and watch it run. That's better. See how we're getting some nice swirly bits happening? You can also tip the card back down so the dark comes back down to your horizon line. Tip it both ways a few times. Now I might let that dry and leave a gap and work this area so that I'm not trying to work the brush into the water, because that went too light there because I'd had water already on it. So let's, and we'll bring it up to near our other colours. If we end up with a little bit of white, that's okay. We'll give it a smoosh. So just push that water into it. If you feel you're getting a line there, just smoosh over that, but most of that will go once we spritz it. Now let's come in with our black. Blend that up into the blue. Okay, that's really ready for a spritz, isn't it? So we really wanted to get it taking off into lines and swirls and things like that. Okay, well that bit's drying a bit. Let's go to this top corner where there's not too much water. In. I've tried doing Northern Lights before and had trouble, I think because of trying to control it too much, which is why the smooshing it with water is, the spritzing it with water and the smooshing it is good, because it just makes you have to let go and let the effects just happen. And the more smooshing out and effects we get, the better it's going to look. I'm going to try this one with just the water spritz rather. Oh, we've still got nice swirls happening down that end. If you get blobs that you're not happy with, you would just grab your paper towel and just dab those back a little bit. But we don't want it all, in the middle of this one, they all blended in a bit too much together and it sort of loses it a bit. You're better when you've got it more swirly and patchy. So let's grab this corner and give it a spritz just with some water. Just let it smoosh out. So I'm just going to tip it back and forwards and see how those stars are starting to, they will resist the inks. Tip it forwards and backwards in a way that you guys can see it. Let's pop it up like that. Is that better, Maddie?
Sure.
I think I was going around in circles. I'm going to tip it up this way. Let it swirl around a bit like that. Oh, beautiful. I'm just going to stop there and let that settle for a minute. Says me then playing with it again. Okay, can we come down to this bit now? I think we can. I need to watch it that I don't get lots of mess on my fingers and put little fingerprints in there. Okay, let's smoosh our blue, then we're going to pop in the black. Matthew's reminding me that I can't get too carried away because we do want to try and fit this into the half an hour. Let's give it a spritz. So I've gone back to the metallic. Excellent. I'm going to leave that one quite blobby. See what we get happening in this corner, because we might even get some bits joining up. Let's go a smoosh some water in that, tease it around. If your pens start not flowing with as much colour, just give it a little bit of a squeeze and that'll get a bit more from the reservoir coming down. You could certainly do this with just the one water brush, but it just makes it a little bit quicker, that I'm not having to stop and clean my brush each time. Now let's come in with some water on that. Now, how do I not mess with that? Just going to try and leave that bit there. That's awesome. Okay, let's keep moving on. Be a little bit careful. I'm happy for that to run down the card but not go over into our snowy hillsides. So let's just tone that back a little bit there. Just take a bit of that colour out of it. Not so much the colour but the wet. Okay, am I ready to smoosh this one? Spritz that with a bit of water. I'm not going to tip it up this time because we're going to get some wonderful connections happening without sitting it up too far. Okay, that's pretty wicked. I love how those little stars are popping out. So you could keep on playing and playing. You can even let it dry and then come back and mess with it a bit again if you want to. So don't worry if it's not perfect. You can always come back and have a bit more of a play. We can even add some ink colours back in if we wanted to. I'm just going to grab our Twilight ink pad and my grey brush. Where are you hiding? Grey brush, there we go. And we're just going to add a little bit of depth behind some of these little snowy mountains. And I've actually managed to spritz colour over them anyway. So they're not looking very snowy anymore.
Ice reflecting the sky.
Oh, you're wonderful. Just going to tip that up again, let that flow a bit again, tip it that way. Now on my sample I actually embossed some little bits out of the Gras set along the bottom edge, which I'd like to do, but I might need to just try and dry this off with the heat gun a little bit first. Alright, so I'm just going to wipe over the bottom with my anti-static pad. And we'll get our little bit of Gras, pop him on a block, grab some Versamark ink. I might grab the grottier pad, seeing as this is a very stained little stamp. Now that's already embossed, so I've got to try not to emboss over where I've already got embossing. So we're just going around those bits. Let's drop that into our black embossing powder. And be very careful not to get any embossing powder up near our skyline because that's all still very wet. I'm just going to flip it over, give a tap on the back, and then we'll be ready for our heating. Move all our powders and ink pads out of the heat gun zone. So this will just give it a little bit more perspective and depth. Okay, and I think we're probably just about up to our time. Now some of that has smooshed in a bit too much together, I think. I'm loving the little stars, but I think I'll come in with that and just add, this is fantastic here. I'm going to just add a bit of colour back into it with some of probably the Mardi Gras ink pad, and put a bit more black around the edges. So I have a bit more of a play with that one, and then pop it up with a picture for you to see. Thank you very much for watching. This has been a good fun one. It's great just letting those inks flow and run and just teasing it with the water and letting it happen. But sometimes to get the movement, you then put on so much water that they blend in together too much, and that's what's starting to happen here. So I just want to break that up a little bit more. So I'm going to keep having a play, and I hope you can get together with us and have a bit more of a play with some of your stamps and see if you can have a go at this Northern Lights soon. Okay, thanks for watching, and we'll be back with you with another video soon.